You've heard the phrase embarrassment of riches. That's what New York has if you replace riches with awful, horrible, no good liars in power who ruin people's lives and let people die. Or you could just call them New York Democrats. First, there's the governor whose staff admits to covering up rest home deaths. In a just world, Cuomo would be out. But we also know he has a brother at CNN. So when the rest home story worsened, what did his comedic sidekick do? Tweet at Republicans. Sadly, he kept the giant Q-tip at home in his prop closet with the ankle weights. Just an FYI, none of those Republicans were responsible for thousands of dead. And so today, as the governor feels the heat, he took the stage. Whose fault could this be?
COVID did not get into the nursing homes by people coming from hospitals. COVID got into the nursing homes by staff walking into the nursing home when we didn't even know we had COVID. Anybody can bring it in. A delivery man brings it in. The heating repairman brings it in. The food service brings it in. Staff person goes home, meets with their family, someone in the family has it, staff member comes back, the staff member brings it in.
See, it's just not his fault. It's all those little people. But you got to wonder, how does he know this? I mean, he blamed all of this on a void of information, which is funny given who controls the information. It's him. How can you forget this?
We're below the national average in number of deaths in nursing homes. But who cares? 33, 28, died in a hospital, died in a nursing home. They died.
As bad as Cuomo is, and he's bad, he has one ace in the hole, an ace hole, so to speak, known as Bill de Blasio. As crime not only rises but turns grisly under him, this weekend a fiend stabs 4, kills 2, but had been recently arrested for at least 4 other violent attacks. Why was he on the street? Well, maybe he'd get COVID in prison. But where Cuomo's defense is always steeped in defensive arrogance, de Blasio is always mindless ambivalence, knowing disorder accelerates the revolution, and the press plays on. And so as New York bleeds out, people pack the U-Hauls, leaving the rich and the insane behind. Maybe they can fight it out. I'm sure the tickets for that show will be easier to get than Hamilton. So, Dana, I'd like to see your perspective from the public relations point of view, given that is your history. How do you think this thing went today with Cuomo?
Well, not well. And I would say that presidential ambitions are out the window. And I also think that his hopes of a 4th term as governor are done. And I think if he announces that sooner than later, that will probably help, because he's not just taking incoming from the right. He's now taking incoming from the left. And if you think about, one of the worst things that happened at the beginning of the pandemic was him fighting with de Blasio.
Yeah.
And waiting, and sort of wasting time. I would say that if you're going to have a press conference like this, one, why didn't you do it last Thursday when this story broke? The story now has been out there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days, and then you answer questions, but you don't answer all the questions. Mm-hmm. You leave so many things unanswered, so that means that if you talk about information void, other people are going to try to fill that in. Mm-hmm. I also want to thank you, Greg. I will now start to use ace hole, and I will never be bleeped again. Thank you very much. Yes.
I've got another word that I invented. I'll show you later. So, Juan, what was your take on on his presser today? Did he do right by himself, or is he in the same boat, so to speak?
I think he's largely in the same boat, Greg. I mean, he's trying to explain things. I mean, he's right. The total number of deaths is the total number of deaths. But there's no question in my mind that he covered up what was going on inside the nursing homes. And we heard last week just that from one of his top aides. So, I mean, it's not like he could say, oh, that was a misunderstanding, although she has tried to backtrack a little bit. But, I mean, the fact is the fact. I think where I would, see this a little differently than you do is I think the New York media, goodness gracious, they go after de Blasio and Cuomo, it seems to me, I mean, it's like it's an all-out hockey brawl every day. I mean, with the tabloids, the New York tabloids, big city tabloids leading the way, and the New York Times loves to throw, you know, some low blows at Cuomo whenever they get a shot, which is a surprise. But again, it's Democrats and Republicans who are highly critical of Cuomo in this moment over the nursing home situation. And for me, I just think that I don't know that it's the end of his time in politics, but as a leader right now, his base with Democrats is in danger.
Yep.
Okay.
No question.
So, Sean, you were in politics. I am interested in Juan's right, though. It seems like the New York media has turned, but they kind of like waited until it no longer would benefit Trump. It's like now that Trump's out of the picture, now they can deal with this because they know that won't actually advance Trump's position or something like that. Am I reading too much into it?
No, I don't think you are. They wanted to save Cuomo while he was bashing on Trump. But the bottom line is politics is really actually very simple, right? Mm-hmm. Be honest with people. We're human. We make mistakes. And when you make a mistake, if you're honest and you apologize and you promise to do better, people will give you a pass. But when you come out and say, the mistake was I created a void, and it wasn't my policy that allowed people, seniors who were sick with COVID, to go back into a nursing home and infect everybody else. It was actually the staff workers that actually were the problem. I mean, you're not taking responsibility. And also, they should have been honest with the numbers. I mean, how many people in nursing homes actually died from his bad policies? If you apologize, people forgive him. By the way, there's one thing in New York. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm out here this week, and I was walking around. It looks like a Packer game. Everyone's sitting outside with stocking hats on and winter jackets. What horrible policy to kick everyone out of restaurants and make them sit outside in 28-degree weather.
Yeah, and also what's interesting about the things that they're sitting in are actually buildings, right? That have, all they would have had to do was just let the restaurant leave the windows open, because that's what they just did. They just build a second part of the restaurant and leave the doors and windows open. I don't understand this. Katie, where do you see his career going? How do you feel about New York in general? I'm very depressed.
I will not go into my deep feelings about New York in general because it will take the entire show, but I do not live there, so I think that your opinion probably matters more than mine, but I think what's happened to New York is really sad. In terms of Cuomo's career, I think right now it looks really bad, but I'm not confident that he won't fail up. Especially given the national media has given him such a pass at this point. I do think that these investigations, both at the local level and from the Department of Justice, will maybe have some more results than Cuomo would like. He made it obvious today that he's not going to help with those investigations. He tried to say that subpoenas from the legislature and the assembly were illegal and that they couldn't use them against him because it's, you can't use them for leverage when that's the entire point of those things. And when you have Democrats demanding that there be subpoenas issued, it seems like he'll be in trouble. So I think for the sake of the families, there should be some kind of legal accountability here because they're not going to get it from the media. And if there's no legal accountability, Cuomo will continue to rise in his political career, although right now it looks pretty bleak.
And you know what? No one even talks about de Blasio. Okay,
Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing. That's like I actually, de Blasio is worse, but nobody cares because he's no longer a national person. He ran for president. Remember that?
Yep, for 30 seconds.
For 30 seconds, he did better than Kamala, though, didn't he? Just about close.
Did he stay in after that? Maybe.
Close.
I don't know. All right.